Thank you, Linda. On to item number 2 is announcements. Any announcements tonight? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3, property owner comments. Sir, please state your name, address.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Murphy, 71 Sudden Valley Drive.
You have to get right up to the microphone to be heard.
Dan Murphy, I didn't get the address of Sudden Valley
Seven.
Drive.
Yeah, 71.
Thank you.
Yeah, proud resident since 2016. Good evening. I just had a couple of, I had a question about the minutes from last meeting. During the meeting, it was stated that there were still swim lessons available, and my wife tried to get on and they were all filled up within like an hour or something like that. So I don't know if that's like worthy of discussion. It's kind of in the past, but it seemed to be inaccurate that there were spaces left so I don't know how to handle that or if it should be handled at all.
I spoke to them in the morning, so I guess it had closed out by the night. I didn't check back, so my bad.
No problem whatsoever. And then I guess this being maybe my second meeting here, I wondered, now I know this is a comment period, I wondered how discussion or Q&A would take place if we were to want to talk about a topic. Do I ask for agenda time? What do you recommend?
Well, that would be taken up at our town hall. We'll have a town hall. If you have questions or comments or anything like that, you're welcome to send them to the board at any time.
Sure. Okay. And the town hall, that's just an annual
I'm going to
meeting?
say if it's just a comment, you're more than welcome to comment.
Mhm.
We may not be able to address it at the time,
Sure.
but anytime you want to come for property owner comments, it does bring an issue up to us. So
Sure.
go ahead and do that.
This isn't electrified, right? This time.
No.
Last week it was quite live.
That was
Um,
fixed.
Well, then, the town hall is an annual event
It is.
right, okay. So then I had noticed that there appears to be a vacancy with respect to a recreation committee. Is that correct or am I mistaken? The Trails Recreation and Parks Committee?
That I do not know.
Parks and Trails Committee is an ad hoc committee of the
Right.
board, and the board did not choose to authorize or charter that committee this year.
No one's joking.
Great, thank you. And so should, for instance, at the town hall or wherever, somebody would want to have such a committee or participate or volunteer for a city committee, does that still get left to the board or how would that go?
We have a volunteer program, and we've already had 2 trail clearing events this year, and you can sign up for that by simply calling the the front office at
Sure.
just the main office number, and they'll sign you up, and then we'll announce when we're having events and ask for volunteers.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, just to go back, the question about being on an agenda, is that not possible that the board meetings don't include community sourced or whatever topics? Is that not?
So you'd like to make a short presentation to the board about something?
If that's an option, yeah. Rather than waiting a year for a town hall, I have something that may be of interest to everybody.
Well, the town hall is scheduled for August 17th. If you would like to suggest that a topic be taken up by the board, the appropriate way would be to send an email to the board of directors, which is bod@suddenvalley.com. And the president and me, the GM, are responsible for preparing the agendas. And the first priority is board business. There are often specific tasks that have to be done at different times of the year.
Right.
But other topics are worked in as appropriate.
Got it. Okay, so that's something I should submit sooner than later. It's coming up fast. Great, thank you for that. I think I'm just about done. Do we have, and I looked on our website, are demographics of our community available or is that like something through the county? Did anybody know?
You can go to census.gov, but it's hard to parse because our zip code includes a lot of other places that are not Sudden Valley.
Yeah.
Are you guys aware of a different source, AJ, Sonia?
it is a census designated area
Mhm.
and we do make up most of it. So I would say 90, a little over 90% of it is Sudden Valley. So it's pretty accurate.
yeah.
You, the, the website that Joanne mentioned, you can go in there and, on the census
Yeah.
site, you can break it down by category of what you're
Right.
looking for. It's pretty close. It reflects the area pretty well.
Yeah, I was a social science major. It's been a few years since I've used it, and I'm not looking for like statistical, accuracy, but just a general idea. I just wondered.
So we did pull all of that information 2 years ago. So it's in, I think, the long range planning documents that are on the website. We have some demographics on there.
Oh,
But
okay.
they're 2 years old. We'll need to update those.
That's helpful. Thanks. Again, like a thumbnail, I think it's just sort of somewhere to start from.
Okay.
And then you actually touched on my very last question. With respect to long-range planning, that is a committee, as I understand, and that's a required committee, is that right? Okay, great. And are there openings on said committee, or is that full, or what?
There's openings on
There's-
there. Yep.
Okay.
And so you would just go to the website where you saw the parks and trails.
Yeah,
There's actually a long range planning, or you can just make a note and say that you'd like your application to be sent to the long range planning committee.
perfect. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, on to item number 4 is consent agenda for 4A, the meeting minutes. That's been removed tonight. We'll move on to item number 5 is finance report for April 2024 financials. It'll be by Joel.
Cheers.
Look at these.
It's even worse. At least the phone, I can, that
Yeah.
big.
I can already see. Look
Like-
look at the, I need a magnifying. That'd be a-
Okay, so I'm going to be going over the April 2024 financial statements. And in terms of page numbers, I don't believe the board agenda packet is labeled with page numbers, but I'm starting on physical page 5 of your agenda packet. So, and I would start off with the balance sheet. Just zoom in just a little bit here. Okay, so with the balance sheet, there's actually nothing, which is good. There's nothing real notable going on here. Maybe I'll point out, I believe I pointed this out before, but in terms of like operating cash, how you see a decrease of operating cash of approximately 121,000 from year end December 2023, which is what this column is. to April 30th, 2024. And that's largely attributable to the board transfer, the board approved transfer out of operations into capital of 105,600, which obviously went out of this operating fund that I just pointed out, and it went down into SURF in here. So that's where that money went. And we'll just go ahead and, I'm just going to go ahead and skip forward to the income statement, which is now page 6, the physical page 6 of your agenda packet. And okay, so I'll just start off with, so our collection rate, as I said last month, what April would close out year to date, 96.8%. Last year of April 2023 was 96%. So this year we're continuing like a really nice positive trend over last year. And last year was a great year collection rate wise. And for May, so May's already been calculated for the collection rate. So it was 96.8% as you see here for April 2024. And it actually increased year to date in May to 97.4%. Versus May of 2023, like I said, last year was a great year too. May of 2023 is 96.7%. So now this year, May 2024, it's 97.4%, which so collection, and we budgeted, keep in mind, for a 95% collection rate. So we're on a really good track this year. And last year was a great year, better than the year before. And this year is better than last year as well. And like I said before with ops, so since we budgeted for a 95% collection rate, what does that mean, you know, in terms of the bottom line to the net income, operating net income right here? So if we budgeted 95%, so if we ended the year at a 96% collection rate, then that means ops would have another, you know, I'll just give you rounded numbers. Ops will have approximately another $27,000 more to the bottom line. And that's for every 1% over 95%. Obviously, we can only go 5% over that, hit 100%. But SURF would be an additional 13,520. Roads would be real close to about 14,000. Mailboxes just around $250. But that's how much more will come into the bottom line that we didn't budget for, which is great. So in terms of the actual numbers, what you see right here is you see operating net income at the end of April 2024. So this is year to date. Obviously, these columns over here, month to date, but we'll just focus on the year to date. So 127,458 at the end of April 2023 is 214,301. So we're better than budget by 90,228. Last year, we were better than budget by real close to 62,000. And now this is largely attributable. Last year, we were at 214,301. Like I said, this year, we're at 127,458. And really, the big difference would be this. It would be salaries and benefits. So last year for salaries and benefits, we were sitting at about $564,000. This year, as you can see, we're at about $693,000. And that's just really just a function of staffing in terms of, you know, last year there were a couple positions that we didn't have staffed, and this year now we do, like a chief of staff and IT and so forth.
That increased salary number also reflects the increases that were granted to employees as a result of signing a new collective bargaining agreement. So,
Yes.
So can I ask you something? Have you looked at the bottom line for end of year once with this new organizational structure that the board approved with these other positions? And then, so there's new positions plus salary changes for existing positions because the job descriptions were rewritten. Have you looked at what that's going to do to the budget by end of year? Because we've already had to move 45,000 from UDR to cover a potential position in, you know, in the accounting department.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how is that going to impact our end of year numbers?
Yeah. So the short answer to that is no, I have not factored any of those positions in these financials.
Thank you.
well, it's not in the April financials because none of the changes have been implemented. I have meeting with the Teamsters local in the second week of July. As I indicated to the board, any change to a union position would require discussion with them first. But the only additional salary that's required based for that plan that I put forward is for the accounting manager. And then a small increase is suggested for one of the other positions whose responsibilities have changed. And that would be more than addressed by the current surplus in operations.
Now, I guess since I'm on the top level of the income statement, I'll go ahead and just hit on a couple of these. Contract and professional services, as you can see, this is worse than budget by 33,225, and I'll just, so that's basically, this is related to the ACC consultant invoicing. Now, last year, for this, we received these, actually, we received most of these, his invoices it was like early of 2024 that had to be backdated back into 2023. But this year we've basically been prodding him, and we've been getting more invoices actually far ahead of time than last year. So that's why you're seeing like a difference. It just wasn't budgeted for through April since the budget spread was basically factored on kind of the historical pattern of when we got the invoices, but that's really about it. Now, in terms of obviously a big thing right here would be regulatory compliance at 41,233, and that is trees. That's hazardous trees. But as you can see, it went in front of the board for that UDR request for trees, and this is where you'll see it showing up right here, hazardous tree removal, 10,120 through the end of April. Obviously, 6,862 happened in month to date in April, and then that's over the past couple months. I think that was approved back in March. So March and April, 10,120. Yeah.
Question, Joel, while you're right there.
Yeah.
So why the 41,000 over in insurance? I know there was an increase as of June, but year to date,
Well,
am I dreaming? No.
this 41,000 that you're talking about, that's actually regulatory compliance, and that's hazardous trees.
Okay.
This, the one below that would be for
I
that.
got
Yeah, 1827.
There was a significant increase to our insurance premiums that I reviewed in last meeting's general manager's report.
Yeah, that we'll see in July, June and July, I anticipate.
Correct.
Now, just run through this statement because I've talked about it quite a bit over the past few months, but this is physical page 7. So I'm just moving forward in the agenda packet. But so this is just showing you the capital reserve funds, operating reserve funds, which would be emergency ops and UDR. But so you can see with the first column, SURF, basically just, we're starting with year-end December 2023, 3.6 million. And then we're just tacking on dues, cash dues coming in, investment income. This one right here, 2024 expenditures, these are all the checks basically that we've cut that have gone out the door for SURF for approved capital projects, and SURF loan payments as well would factor into there. And then we have the just 8-month outlook. This is the 8 months of dues at 95% collection rate, which we forecast come in. And actually, according to our collection rate, it'll probably be, I'm sure it'll be more than this since our collection rate is higher. And then the SURF loan payments, 222,000. This is for the next 8 months for those SURF loan payments. And then here's the big number right here. Obligated expenses holding real close to 1.7 million. And that's just everything that the board has approved. I'll just pull it up here real quick for. So this would be the capital project report for April. And of course, now the difference of the report that you saw last month for March, you probably noticed it had all those red dots of closed projects. So all those projects are now closed. They're gone. They've been closed to fixed assets and in part of the 2023 ending numbers now. And the only red dot you see on here is the Austin Creek repair, which in April, the board approved at that point to just basically put a halt to that and return that money into the SURF fund. So you can see that there's now nothing obligated here for this Austin Creek repair for this project anymore. And there's the balance 1,1,696,764, which then ties directly to right here. And then since we're here for roads, there's the 1.469 million for roads. And then same thing, you'll notice no more closed projects. The only things on here are just all the things that are open. That's it. All the closed stuff has been closed and sealed back into 2023 with the year-end closing numbers. So you'll see that for CVC, the only thing here is the 2024 CVC project, and everything else are items that are open. And the 1.469 million is the number that obviously ties to here. And really the only other thing was UDR, the 59,948 obligated. So here it is right here, 59,948. And you can see the big thing on here is this 2024 hazardous tree removal that was approved in March of 2028. March 28th, 2024. We still have some money left over for the old Firewise project in 2023, and we still have this Area Z mitigation kicking around, just unspent funds to that project code. Now, I could just get rid of it if you guys wanted to. I could just remove it and close it down. But anyways, since we had not completely spent out this amount for Area Z mitigation, it's still continuing to show up. But that's what gives us the net usable cash anyways. After this board recommended carryover balance of 600,000 for SURF gives us a net usable cash, what we project. This is as of the end of April. If nothing else happens throughout the year and it continued this pattern, meaning with, approved projects, which obviously projects get approved all the time, but we would project $1.9 million to be at the end of 2024. Obviously, this number moves around month to month as projects become approved. New projects, I should say. Same thing for roads, but just to give you an example, okay, so in April of 2023, so we had 2.7 million projected to be at the end of the year. Now, 1.9 million for SURF, so I'm talking about SURF still. Roads, we have 1.46 million. Last year, we had 2.4 million projected to be at the end of 2023. UDR, this is the one actually where 295,000 260,000 at the end of 2023 projected as of April 2023. And this one actually went up. So now we're up to 295,000 projected for the end of 2024. But these, like I said before, the big thing, these are all of this is a function of how much is being approved to be spent out of these funds by the board. That's the big thing. And then I'll just do one more page here. So I'm going to skip past this page. This is just the current month, only for the month of April. So we'll go to the next page, which is same format, but this is showing you the entire year to date, January through April 2024. And it's just showing you, this is the exact same thing as that income statement page, but it's just showing you what department is responsible for what. So like you could see net operations, 127,458 right here. And then if I went back to that income statement, there's that same 127,458. But it's just, this is a breakdown of what department contributed to that number. And a couple things that, well, the thing that I point out the most is the golf line item right here. I'll just focus on this for now. Actually, let me go to year to date. So you can see for golf, actual revenue year to date, this January 1 through April 30, 2024, actual revenue for golf, 371,163. Last year, at the end of April year to date, it was 378,756. So they kind of fell behind just a little bit in April. Now total expenses for golf would be this actual salary benefits, this 235,158 plus all other expenses, 148,523. That comes out to $383,681 expenditures for golf. The year before is $342,271. So expenses went up in 2024 year to date through April by about $41,410. Revenue went up by real close to 7,600. So with golf, net income, they had a net loss, which we projected they would have at the end of April, of 12,518, but they're actually better than budget by close to 15,000 for the year, versus over last year, they were sitting at about 36,485 for net income. And now I do have the May numbers already for golf. So I do know year to date, the good thing for golf is then golf has actually pulled ahead through the end of May over year. So the end of May 2024, January through May 2024, golf then had 517,735 in revenue, versus year to date through the end of May of 2023, they had 516,847. So they're actually now pulling ahead at the end of May revenue wise where they were last year. And last year was their best year yet. So this year is, so far anyways, through with the May numbers that I'm seeing, they're shaping up to be possibly better than last year.
Just while we're on golf, the additional 10 golf carts that the board approved earlier were finally delivered in June, and every single cart was in use this past weekend. So it was, as Joel pointed out, the revenue is pulling ahead of last year, and we're doing it during a time when the weather is not conducive many days. So on the days when the weather is good, everybody goes out at the same time, and it's been challenging to manage, but it's a very positive sign.
Now for Marina, I'll go ahead and hit on this one too last. This will be the last thing I'll talk about. But so you can see actual revenue for Marina through April, 114,773. Of course, we talked about last month how this year we've changed the process in terms of, in years past, we would just bill everyone and then send out the bills. And then if they didn't pay it within 30 days, and then that would immediately become bad debt expense, which would drive down the revenues. But then it would go right back up again as people paid those bills, which would happen over the next couple of months, usually from year to year. But this year we changed it so a person does not get to renew unless they pay for it. So when they came into the office or sent their payments in. So what you're looking at are basically all the renewals that we had through the end of April. So actual revenue of 114,773. Last year it was 109,107. But then again, of course, there's a bad debt expense component, which kind of makes things a little more difficult to compare it year to year. But the bottom line, this is in terms of the actual, let me just go to the Marina page. Okay. So you can see that for the month of April, we took in $80,177 of renewals for April. And then year to date, there's that 114,772. It's factoring in, obviously, Marina Gate Card access. But so we had 113,573 of Marina renewals month to date through, or year to date through April. And I do know in May that we also took in another $102,000 in Marina renewals as well. So actually,
216,000, right? Total for the year,
yeah. So
Marina.
for May year to date, actually, so we took in 219,185 in total Marina revenue, versus year over year at the end of May 2023 is 171,226. Of course, we would expect that since we've increased Marina fees, which is obviously leading into this.
Thank you.
Yeah. But other than that, I think that pretty much covers basically all the important elements on the financial statements. If there are any more questions on these.
I just have one. I noticed that especially in just April to April, there was like a significant overage in salaries for golf? Do we know why? Is that just because we finally have been able to get a pro on board and that sort of thing? That there's so much of an overage?
Yeah, so golf, because I believe last year they were down on a position or two in golf departments, and golf is fully staffed, I believe, at this point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any additional questions?
There's another thing to point out. Um, The state of Washington establishes a minimum salary for exempt workers. In order for a worker to be considered exempt, they have to make at least twice the minimum wage. So we do have an exempt worker who is a member of the union. It doesn't matter. I mean, the law approves, applies to everybody, but we did have an exempt worker whose salary needed to be significantly increased, and that was not a budgeted expense. So it was calculated into the total anticipated delta in salaries that is attributable to the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, but golf is bearing a disproportionate amount of that delta because of the presence of that position in that department. Does that help anybody?
That does me. It's hard to tell because golf's all, turf care used to be kind of separated and now it's all one lump. And you don't know if it comes out of turf care, or if it comes out of like the pro shop and stuff. So was my question, but I understand what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Because I know what some of those.
Any additional questions?
Did we even consider like changing his status from exempt to non-exempt and just be a union employee?
Yes, that was discussed at length, and it was determined after creating some models in Excel that it would cost us more in overtime based on the needs of the head pro to work a lot in the summer months when we're so busy, and then to work less in the off season.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, on your first page, you requested that we had some numbers that were budgeted in 23 and then the project didn't get done, and you're just kind of keeping track, and you kind of requested us as a board to maybe remove that from bookkeeping. You still want to do that?
Which
It was on your first page. I think it's some project that we had for 23.
You just said there was some small numbers that are still on there that you could remove that are
oh,
open
right, yeah,
projects. if we-
UDR, is it? Yeah, the UDR. I think,
Yeah, but you need our help to do that.
yeah.
Make it better bookkeeping. I'm all for making it easier because I think it's extremely complicated already.
It would just be something as simple as, the good thing about UDR is we don't close that to fix assets and depreciate it, so we could just remove it and it's just gone.
Do you need a motion to do that?
Good question. Since we've never actually done that before with like a UDR line.
Yeah, we would have to, I would have to look at the nature of each of those projects when they were first approved, write a memo and bring it back to the board so I can take that on for the second meeting in July, if it's of interest to the board to do that. Okay, we'll take care of it then.
Jill, what would you suggest? Do you just suggest leaving it open since it's all,
Well, it just comes down to if anyone believes that additional spending might be occurring over there at Area Z, where those funds could be handy to use. But if not, then might as well just deobligate it from UDR.
I'm willing to defer to whatever you
So,
recommend.
because actually that number has been kicking around for years.
Yeah, let's clean it up.
Yeah.
27.
I was gonna say, I know that's been sticking around and it's when we did all that underground work and stuff. I wonder if until all the building gets done with that, with
Yeah.
the maintenance building and stuff, that there might still be something there that we could utilize those or need to utilize those
Yeah.
funds. That's why haven't said anything because I get it.
And actually, remember there was an old hazardous tree line item that was on there in UDR for quite a few years that you pointed out, and we ended up using that anyways for some other trees. That happened to be a part of that listing that we could.
I think I would. It was just a bunch of work to be done in Area Z, and it's where they tore it all up. They put in a water line and had to dig down to that place where we all hope we don't go when we die. It was just a really deep hole that they had to dig down there, and it was unexpected. But then we ended up putting extra money, I think, in there to cover all that. But I think I would wait and see if they could use some of that once the new maintenance building is all set to go. And
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I said we needed to look at the original circumstances and details of when the project was approved to determine whether any of that money could be used now, if it met the criteria. So I'll do that research and bring it back to y'all.
Thank you.
You. Okay, moving on, we're going to move on to item number 6 is committee reports. Document review committees listed first, so give an update if you want, what you have.
oh, I can. I've submitted a report for the agenda packet. We began meeting in March of this year, and we started looking at board policies. I went in there and noticed that several of them had 404 errors, and staff and I worked to correct that. And then I thought, well, let's start looking at them because I knew that ACC was updating their manual, and several, all but one of the policies that are under board policies are now much more filled out and covered by the ACC manual update. We have those set to be rescinded. Once the new manual is finally approved, we will bring those forward to the board to be presented to the board and ask for them to be rescinded. We started further looking then into board-specific policies, and we've been looking through those. We just reviewed the changes that we wanted, voted to approve them, and we're waiting until August 8th since we're going into the budget process right now. And I hope to bring those back to the board to have them superseded and updated and have the board look at them at that time.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, next, Finance Committee.
Hello. Okay, the Finance Committee resumed in December of 2013 after over a years of absence of the committee. The Finance Committee consists of 7 members, 2 of which are board members, which is myself as the chair and Stu Mitchell as the co-chair. Then we have we must have at least 2 community members, and the additional spots can be slated by either board or community. And we have on, besides Stu and myself, Rob Gibbs, Karen Borchert, Mary Quinn, Wayne Lee, and Heather Goodman. Since we've resumed in December of 13, we have held 5 meetings, and in those meetings, we have reviewed 18 capital requests. After careful discussion and debate, the Finance Committee recommended to the board to approve 17 of those 18 capital requests. Also, during each meeting, we review with Joel, and we review and discuss the financials presented by Joel, our finance director.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, moving on next to the GM search. Joanne? Oh, Rick.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I'm zooming in from Michigan where the crickets are chirping and the fireflies are firing. Glad to be with you. So the GM Search Committee, I submitted a written report. If you have any questions about that, I'd be glad to answer those. Since I submitted the report, we've had another meeting and earlier today. So before I go on to that, any questions about my report that I submitted? I don't think I need to read it.
Ray?
We'll accept it as written.
Thank you.
I hear
So
none.
we're now, you should have all received the job description that I circulated about 2 weeks ago, requesting comments from you. We've received a few of those and have incorporated most of those edits into that job description. So are there any other thoughts or comments about the job description at this point? We would hope to be able to approve those.
Aren't we going to be discussing that
This is
later?
Sonia.
Yeah, we're discussing that later.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We're discussing that later, and it's a later agenda item.
The approval is, yes. I was just asking if you had questions about it.
So are you saying we're not going to be discussing it later? We're just going to be approving it?
No, what Sonia's saying is come-
No, yeah, no, we can just, we'll be discussing it then. I'm sorry to confuse you. So we also discussed at our meeting today the profile for the job announcement for the general manager. And I believe we had that edited document that we received from Prothman after submitting material to them to you today. And so we would like to expedite the process of getting that approved by having some discussion tonight, but also then asking, because you haven't had time to review that, asking you to look that over, make any suggestions that you have, and then get those back to us by Tuesday, and we'll incorporate those. And then what I would like to do later, in coordination with the discussion about the GM job description, have the board consider authorizing the executive committee to approve the revised profile so that we can get the job description and the profile off to Prothman and get our national search underway.
Any questions or comments? Rick, regarding this, go ahead. Anyone? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that in our GM search committee meeting, and somehow we missed change to the agenda. We wanted to discuss how we wanted to handle the profile, and I don't know if it's too late to still add that on, just a quick discussion as 8D item, but whether we want to bring it back, because we are really tight for time with this, whether we wanted to come back and meet for a really quick meeting next week, Monday or Tuesday, or whether we wanted to allow the executive committee to approve it and then get ratified by the rest of the board. So that is an oversight that we should have amended the agenda for them. So can we still do that? To discuss that, or is it too late?
All right. Go ahead, Sonia.
Isn't this this is the part that is different than the job description, as I understood it, that this is more of the. Right. So right now they're meeting downstairs with community members to gather more of those qualifications. That's not the right word, but whatever, the qualities that they're seeking. I don't think we're actually prepared for that. I think Prothman's got to give feedback from that meeting, because you're saying you guys met today. They met with staff, right? Today also, or the management team?
They met with staff, and
And-
then we had a separate meeting, which was not part of that.
Yeah.
So perhaps we just need to have a really quick meeting next week.
Yeah,
now
because
that
I
you've had
think they'll
time to look
probably
at it.
put it in a report or something, a summary of whatever they,
I don't know that
on, Lori.
that the,
Joanne had
what
her
do you
hand
call
up.
it, whatever the focus group that he's talking with tonight is really going to affect,
Lori.
No, let her go.
Okay, go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Lori. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Keep going. You're good.
is, I think there's different objectives that they're working on with the focus groups than what we're working on with this profile. I think this is
Yeah,
more.
if I might, I think there is the potential for Prothman to insert some modifications to the profile based on responses from the focus group tonight. But I think those will also come, and it is important to try and identify and separate the job description from the qualities and personality fit that's going to best lead to success for managing Sudden Valley Community Association going forward. And so I think we may want to consider having to incorporate those ideas, the board's ideas, both, and Prothman's thoughts on reflection upon those ideas that are presented, to perhaps having a short special meeting next week to have a chance to review this and then to act on it, so that we can get this ball rolling, so to speak.
Rick, how much time do you think you'll need to get the information?
I think I don't think it will take long. I think Prothman's pretty efficient. If we can get responses from our board members and by Monday night or Tuesday, I think by Tuesday night, Wednesday, we should be able to have that. By Tuesday night, we should be able to have that.
The only thing, Rick, is Thursday's the 4th. So I think if, as we discussed today, if you really want to do a really quick meeting, it's going to have to be July 1st or 2nd, the Monday or Tuesday.
Right.
Because, if we leave it to the 11th, we're just burning days. Like, we need to move with this.
No, right.
Because we neglected to amend the agenda. We can look at Monday or Tuesday. It will be a very short meeting. I wouldn't think more than an hour, 45 minutes.
Okay, Joanne?
Just focus on the.
One item.
Joanne, you had her hand up.
Sorry, Joanne.
No worries. Just to help directors have clarity about the intended use of the materials, the job description has traditionally been an exhibit attached to the general manager's contract. So it describes the responsibilities, the duties and responsibilities of the general manager. The profile, and I gave you a hard copy of the draft profile that includes in a red line version the edits that were suggested by the search committee. So that profile is meant to be an advertisement that introduces the community and the position to potential candidates. And it includes the qualification so that people who aren't broadly qualified for the position would not, be motivated to respond. We were told by Cliff Moore, who is our consultant from Prothman, that the focus groups held today with staff and currently being held with community members that were identified by board members to participate in that group. The feedback that he is receiving would be used to understand, as Rick mentioned briefly, the personality and soft skills and fit for the organization. As you're aware, each of the board directors completed a one-on-one interview and gave their input to Prothman, and that input was incorporated into their recommended edits for the job description and obviously the text that they are proposing for the profile. But when you think of that profile, it's, like I said, it's primarily an ad to attract potential candidates. And that's why their focus is on talking about the larger community, because if someone from outside our immediate area would be interested, they would want to know, well, what's Bellingham about? What's around? In addition to understanding our community and what it comprises. So hopefully that gives you some context for how the materials are used and why some of them have a different slant than others of them.
Thank you, Joanne. Timey?
I was just going to say that that profile is also, Sonia, I noticed that you sent Rick the original ad that was from a few years ago, which we had from the beginning when we started this. And if you look at the profile, there's a lot of the similar wording. They've taken bits out of that original ad and then changed it around, just for your information.
Okay. Yeah, personally, I'm still more comfortable waiting until next week because it's a handout and there's no way that we can review all of this on this particular item this quickly. But I would be okay if we did it as a remote meeting next week. We can't do that.
That committees can do that, but the board has to meet, and remember, we just went through all that.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was talking, Sonia said to maybe do a remote meeting. And I believe we just recently had the discussion after the COVID was lifted that committees certainly could meet remotely, but that the board needed to meet in person.
I think some of the discussion today surrounding that was, and again, we failed to jump in and amend the agenda to include it. But when we discussed in the committee meeting today was to make sure that this was into the hands of everyone, have them submit their information, and the executive team could finalize it, and then it could be ratified at the next meeting. And if that was not acceptable, then we would have to have a special meeting for everyone to ratify it.
Go ahead, Timey.
Sorry, and just one last comment. I know I'm kind of talking a lot, but we would have given this to you earlier if we had it earlier. We just got it. And that's the only reason it is getting to you so late, because we have, trying to make an effort to have everything to you as soon as possible.
Linda?
There's a note at the top of this thing that says that we're supposed to be using this document because it has track changes. Does that mean we're going to get a Word copy of this then? Or I don't understand.
So here's one thing that could be considered. If directors use the hard copy to review and then send their suggested edits to the secretary, I will then implement the edits on the red line and recirculate it. And in terms of timing, perhaps if you got your revisions in before noon on Monday, I could incorporate them and send it out before end of day on Monday. And then if there were no further revisions, I understand from last year when we tried it once that the board can vote in email if it's a simple question on one motion and everyone is unanimous. That was my understanding. So what I could do would be to recirculate that document at the end of the day Monday in a red line version showing all of the changes. And if people were okay with that version, they could say, I approve. And if anyone doesn't approve it, then it's not approved and we could meet on Tuesday. To make that work, we would need to obviously post an agenda tomorrow, which I can do, and then cancel the meeting if it's not needed.
And everyone needs to understand clearly if you ask a question or if you don't agree with it, then it just negates it at that point. Because that's kind of got a little confusing the last time. So I
Right. So
think that's.
you would just have to say approved or not, not approved or something. And then if we don't hear from everyone, it fails. As Sonia mentioned, if anyone has additional edits or asks a question, it fails because you can't hold a meeting or discussion in email. It's just if you're agreed that that's an appropriate venue, we could try that.
So everybody's going to send their stuff to me by noon on Monday.
Okay.
We need to make a motion. Sure.
I was going to say, I have the girls on Monday, so I might be swimming, but I will keep track of everything until that point in time.
Do you have a waterproof pen?
Yeah, so the motion is that the board will all respond to the board secretary by Monday at noon with comments regarding the Sudden Valley Community Association General Manager profile, job ad.
Can I second that?
You can.
Can I second it?
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, guys.
Just to be clear, so once on Monday you receive everything and then it's going to go out, everybody has to review and say yes or no. But everybody has to be unanimous
Correct.
or not to have a meeting, correct?
So if you don't want to meet, just say yes.
Well,
I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah.
Trying to clarify.
so there will be a meeting set up for Tuesday night unless everybody votes yes,
That's correct.
right?
He's canceling.
Yeah. And then we'll cancel it.
Will you still be in Michigan or wherever you're at? Where you at?
I will be arriving home late Tuesday afternoon. I should be back by 7.
Anything else additional, Rick?
No, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Okay, on to 6D, Long Range Planning Committee update.
All right, we had one meeting that got canceled because the board called a special meeting, and then we just had a meeting last week. I was not able to attend due to some work stuff going on, but Sonia ran the meeting, and I think they spent some time discussing who would be kind of helping support drafting various different documents that long range planning is going to be working on this summer, like the comprehensive plan and the survey. Anything to add?
We'll be putting minutes forward because like as AJ said, he wasn't there, so I didn't have the minutes. But they'll also document, we set terms, because the bylaws state that there's term limits or, 3-year term, 2-year term, 1-year term. So we designated those people and they'll be in the minutes and we'll submit those to the secretary so they can be posted too.
Thank you, guys. Moving on to nominations and elections.
Rob's
Rob, yeah,
his absence.
yeah, Rob is absent tonight, excused absence, so we'll excuse him. On to next is item F, 6F is safety.
Okay. Safety Committee has had 2 meetings so far. The first one was really just kind of figuring out what direction we wanted to go in. We've come up with a couple of things. We'll be hosting a booth at the Valley Fair and are hoping to have Robert from the Conservation District as well as our local fire chief stop by with information for residents. We're discussing a volunteer program to help out at bus stops in the fall when school starts again to maximize the safety of the kids that are out walking home. We have 2 of our members gathering information to share with residents on alternate exit routes from the various gates in the event of an emergency. And then 2 of our members have submitted articles to the Views, one related to fire safety and the other to the importance of life jackets, especially trying to reach kayakers and paddleboarders who often tend not to have them with them. So,
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 7, continuing business. Review budget calendar.
That's me.
Hey, Linda.
So we got the one earlier in the year that I don't know about the rest of you, but I had trouble reading because even when it was in the 11 by 18, it was hard, 17, it was hard to read. So I did just a section that starts in June. And it's just a reminder for all of us that we're going to be on a tight schedule between now and when we get to the AGM in order to get our materials ready, get them mailed out. In July, we're going to be, as you can see, we're going to have a presentation of the operational budget and the capital budget on the 25th. I anticipate the only thing on the 24th is going to be the operational budget. There's a lot to discuss. There may be some additional capital requests come forward at the meeting on the 25th, but mostly we're going to try and focus on those items. On the 11th of July, we have some items coming up. We're going to take a look at a draft agenda, what it's all about, couple of bylaw measures, and then take a look at the ballots and the explanations that go on the back of the ballots that we're kind of responsible for. Hopefully Rob will be back by then and be able to take a lead on that because that's Anani's bailiwick there. Then that first meeting in August, we're going to be looking at envelopes, voter instructions if we don't get it done in July. Discuss a little bit any budget changes, that sort of thing, and discuss what's going to happen at the town hall the middle of August. I just made this because it's easier to read for you guys, because I don't know about you, but it's just those lines are so tiny in the other one, and I thought it's just a really good way to focus on what's going to be the board's responsibility and special meetings that we'll have that won't be in our regular 2-week, twice a month meetings. And just so we stay know what we're going to be looking for when you come to the meetings and what you should be seeing in your packets.
Well, I appreciate it, Linda.
Thank
It
you,
would be
Linda.
totally in the dark without this.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So when, so this doesn't reference the reserve study? Is there? Do we know when the reserve study's coming in?
I have no idea. That would be a question for the director of finance.
Say that again. What was the question?
When are we expecting the reserve study?
Well, of course, we'll be putting the budget. Actually, the next thing up is putting all of the budget together. So the first thing we'll do is update the capital budget. And then once I've got all the updates to the capital budget in, then I can start putting it into the reserve study software. Because actually, I have access, which is a little different from years past. I'd have to give all the information to the reserve study consultant and hope they get it all in, and then they give me back a draft. Then, of course, half of the changes didn't get in. Then I have to tell them to put those in. Then I get a draft back and I still have to tell them to put the other quarter. But the good thing is now I actually have access to software. Then I put everything in. Then the reserve study specialist reviews it. So meaning this part of it is more expedited. So
We'll have it before the budget presentations, right? Since you're
a
doing.
draft, you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about a draft version. Yeah,
Yeah.
possibly. Yeah.
Okay.
The good thing is the spreadsheet itself, like that spreadsheet will be the reserve study.
Yeah.
Unless the reserve study specialist says, hey, there's something that looks really crazy here. You shouldn't do something.
It's just usually when we get the reserve studies, he makes recommendations,
Yeah.
as far as funding and what we're
Right,
going to need
yeah.
and does the whole
Those,
nine
the
yards and
tables and.
what
yeah.
projects we're going to do every year.
Yeah.
Is the 2025 one going to be in or not yet? When we're still going to be working with the one that we got late last year.
You're talking about at the time of the budget presentation.
Because we've never really looked at the reserve study, that newest one we have from 2024. We've never really discussed that ever.
We,
Yeah, I mean,
we had that
like,
draft.
We can have a draft by that time, like the actual finalized stamped off version. We'll definitely have that in time for the AGM, but we can certainly have a draft by that time.
Okay.
Meaning like,
As
because
long-
like,
we're gonna have it by the time we do the capital budgeting, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, because I believe even once I get it updated, like the actual reserve study software, I believe I can even generate a draft. It's just getting the actual official stamped off version from him requires his review. Of course, we'll have that, by the time of like the AGM for certain.
Oh, I know by the AGM. It's just, it's nice to see his recommendations. I know I found them interesting to take a look at the ones that he had just in a small paragraph at the very beginning of the reserve study for 2024. And I was hoping that if there was a change to that in 2025, we'd be able to see that. That's
Yeah.
all.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 8, new business. Item 8A is approval request for GM job description. I assume everyone's had the time to look over the description as it was sent out a couple weeks ago. And we had time for questions and answers, so we're going to move right into motion. The motion is that we move that the SVCA Board of Directors approve the proposed general manager job description.
Second.
All in favor? Or any questions? Sorry, yeah, let's.
Any questions?
Let's skip it real quick. Yeah, any questions? Sorry. Open for discussion. Yeah, Sonia.
Okay, so, well, there's several items in there that, that have been removed that I have concerns about. So, number one, it talks about the general manager ensures all aspects of the organization are supported and creates opportunities throughout the year for members and employees to offer feedback and suggestions. That was removed. The general manager leads and supports, that other paragraph, I don't really care that it, how it describes the seasonal and full-time employees, part-time. But then it goes on to talk about, the only reference to diversity, equity, and inclusivity has been removed. The line where it says the general manager shall promote and support diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace has been removed. That I'm not comfortable with that being taken out. We spent a lot of time dealing with some cultural issues within our staff and also within this community. And so I think it's really important, and whether we word it to say, workplace or workplace and community, I just feel it's really important that we address that, that's a real thing, that we need to be considering. The other had to do with, the duties. One of the things that was changed, pretty much all of the planning references were deleted. But it says acts as the main staff liaison with the board, and it originally said long range planning committee. That was changed to say community residents. This directive was written, and it has a very specific meaning. It is not meant to be a vague directive, such as the GM acting as the main liaison to community residents. That's the way you guys have changed it. The very word liaison means the individual responsible for the regular exchange of information between the board and the committee, or the other group. Additionally, members and residents are not the same thing. They do not have the same meaning. So it appears that you're directing the GM to prioritize residents and renters who live within the boundaries of Sudden Valley as opposed to the members. So just, there's multiple things wrong with the language of that. The part that says that the GM implements the compliance program and is responsible for the appeals process, which is part of, that's one of our policies, that's been removed. And then the entire paragraph regarding planning, removing all references to long range and strategic planning, and the GM's part of that ensures that we will not be successful in our budgeting and planning process. One of the reasons that we've been able to, over the last couple of years, stay on budget so well is because of the strategic plan that we put in place in 2021. We followed that plan very closely and implemented all of those. It's really important that the GM takes an active role in planning. And to remove that, they should have the experience and the ability to do that. A consistent planning and budgeting process that considers our members' needs and their ability and willingness to fund creates stability and trust, which makes for a happier community. So again, I would like to see the paragraph that was removed regarding planning put back in. I'd like to at least have one sentence addressing the fact that the GM should create an environment of diversity, equity, and inclusion put back in at a minimum.
Thank you, Sonia. Any additional comments? Anyone? Questions? AJ?
Yeah, I think for me too, I'd like to see the stuff taken out regarding that ensuring all the aspects of the organization are supported and creating opportunities for feedback from members.
AJ, what
and
section are
staff.
you looking at? Sorry.
That's in the key responsibilities. So there's a sentence on, you know, providing opportunities. I think it's important. I think it's critical that the general manager is working with our staff to solicit feedback from our membership on the day-to-day operations so that they can report that information back to the board. I agree with the diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff as well, and would also like to see that the general manager continue to be the direct liaison with the long-range planning committee.
Thank you.
So,
Go ahead.
may I, Keith?
Go ahead, please.
So in regards to the planning aspect of it, and strategic priorities, do you not feel the last bullet under governance adequately addresses that? Where it says collaborates with the board of directors on implementing and administering the SBCA comprehensive community plan, strategic plan, and identified strategic priorities?
So the breakdown is a lot more specific under planning and makes, so you pulled that one piece out of there, right? Like that one bullet point came from underneath the planning. That's the only one you used. But the issue, number one, is that the GM isn't the primary liaison. Which is really important with ensuring that we don't have a disconnect between the planning committee and the board. It's very important that they work hand in hand together and for success, or you don't have a successful plan. We just have a plan that a committee is going to create and it's going to sit on the shelf, which isn't productive for anybody. So what this does when you go under planning, this actually spells out exactly what the general manager's responsibilities are when it comes to, like, for instance, it says guides the strategic planning team through yearly implementation reviews and assisting the team in yearly updates of the strategic plan. The reason that needs to fall to the GM is because we reconstitute the board annually. So it's a possibility that we don't have any experienced planners that were part of a planning team previously. So the GM, it's going to take just like the GM has to set up the board orientation, because we found you can't count on the board to be able to do that. We don't always have that continuity or consistency. But the GM should be able to, I'm scheduling the strategic planning meeting. I'm putting the team together, because the team is the long range planning committee, the key employees, and the board. And so that needs to be a responsibility of a paid staff member that is consistently here and available and has the information.
Thank you, Sonia.
So if I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
so committees of the board report to the board. The board needs to take responsibility and accountability for implementing the direction of the committees. We're going to have a new general manager who isn't going to be familiar with Sudden Valley next year. So I don't think putting all that responsibility on a new general manager at this time makes that much sense from my point of view.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion on the table still stands. Ready to take a vote? Linda?
So when I started looking at this, it wasn't quite as in-depth. I think we're asking for too high of a salary range. I would drop that down. I think there's sections in here where there's, for instance, under administration, it talks about, I can't do that. I can't talk and look at the same time. Ensures the comprehensive, it says implements a comprehensive annual employee and performance evaluation. We have that process. It needs to be ensured that all the employees, according to the CBA, are given their yearly evaluations and stuff. I think it's important, and it wasn't mentioned in here earlier, that it becomes very knowledgeable with how the collective bargaining agreement affects both the employees and the association, the members. There's nothing in there about that. There's a thing under finances where it says utilizes the annual survey results. We don't always have an annual survey. So we just need to utilize as recommendations of the board, the long range planning committee, finance, and the management team. There's that sort of thing. There's another thing where under infrastructure, it says that the GM has to be responsible for overseeing the maintenance, repair, and security. I agree with that. But it isn't overseeing that work on all construction. We have people that work for us, employees or subcontractors. The general manager shouldn't be doing that, but the general manager should be delegating oversight of the work on all construction. Then there's, I guess there's further down in infrastructure, responsible for the execution of board-approved capital improvement projects. No, the general manager isn't going to do that, but they're going to see that those is responsible for the implementation of board-approved capital projects. There's some of the wording in here I just have issues with. There's a whole sentence of works on behalf of the association to coordinate with outside contractors. We have a maintenance manager and we have a construction supervisor manager that we pay money to that does that work, not the general manager. And there's one final line in here that drives me nuts. At the very end, there's the physical demands, and it says works indoors in controlled conditions. It says and outdoors in potentially inclement weather. I don't understand that. Are we going to move her out to shovel the driveway? I don't understand that part of the sentence. But those were some of my recommendations where I think that the description of actually what is the responsibility of a general manager isn't necessarily to implement some of these things, but rather direct the implementation through the management team or any of our other employees we have. So that's kind of where I have my comments on it.
Thank you, Linda. AJ?
What you just described is literally her being, or the general manager being responsible for those things, whether the general manager delegates duties down to staff or other staff members have the actual like day-to-day role of effectively doing tasks and written into their job description. The general manager is so responsible for overseeing everything. So they are responsible. They're not, you don't put delegation authority language in job descriptions typically. That would be like a policy memo that Joanne would write to staff that says, I'm delegating this role of my responsibility to you, is usually how stuff like that's handled. And yes, I think the general manager's job description potentially does have the role of potentially working outside in inclement weather on occasion. I don't think it's something that happens frequently, But if there is an emergency that's happening, Joanne or our general manager might have to be out on site when it's pouring rain or snowing or something, like helping be administrative support to field personnel doing work, you know, gathering information, things like that. So there are times where it does happen. It's not necessarily frequently, but I think,
Keith?
and then I think
Hang on, AJ still got the floor.
Okay.
to address what Rick said regarding, you know, the one bullet on planning being moved up under governance, you know, I think I can get behind that. I do think the language, the bullet that Sonia brought up about guiding the strategic planning team should also be included, and not erased. And I do think it is important. And I think for me, it was less about that whole section being eliminated and the part being that the general manager is the main staff liaison to the long range planning committee. That when the board approved a different staff member as the liaison, which was in direct conflict with the contract the general manager has with us. And I stand by that.
Thank you, AJ. Rick?
Yeah, I think we have enough points to maybe modify the job description that perhaps the board would consider a similar process to what we're doing with the profile. If you could submit some verbiage to how you would like to edit this. I agree the DEI is an oversight that we really should have included. And I think the collective bargaining aspect as well. So if it's okay, I would suggest that it's going to put a heavy burden on you, Linda, but that we collect comments. If you can write some specific language, though, that will really help expedite this process, and then include this in the meeting on the vote and or meeting on Tuesday.
Sonia?
Yeah, I agree. I think that we probably can figure that out, by doing that. But there is one potential sticking point that maybe we can resolve tonight, which is the salary, because Linda is saying she thinks it should be lower. I don't think it should be lower, and but I feel like that potentially we may run into a problem with that piece of it if we do it as a male.
Want to discuss that now, the salary?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree.
Can
with
I? Yeah.
where it should be at myself. Sonia agrees. Oh, I'm sorry, Stu. Thank you. Go ahead, Stu.
I know I'm not online, so kind of confusing. Didn't even notice me here. No, yeah. No, I was just gonna reiterate AJ's point. Implementation of everything on there is literally the description of a general manager. That's their job. Whether they choose to delegate to other people or not, I would hope they would, but you should not have to tell a general manager that they need to delegate. I mean, it's literally their job, and I will agree with Sonia and Keith, and I think AJ, that the salary is appropriate.
I think my concern with starting somebody off that high, at least general managers that I've hired, I believe, I don't know what Dan Pike was paid. I know what, I know, but I'm saying there's things like that I know, I believe our current GM salary wasn't in this range at all initially when hired. There were goals that were attached to that. And could I see something like that to take you up to 200,000? Maybe, but would I start somebody out at 200,000? No. And the next thing is exactly where are you going to get that extra money to put in the budget? Because we haven't seen that yet, where we're going to find all these extra money unless we're going to be raising dues a whole lot.
So just in our meetings, we have discussed in every meeting the salary range at length, both within the committee and also with our representative at Prothman. And this salary is actually lower than recommended. Just based on this is a private sector, so we can't look at really compare like city managers and people in government, but looking at the private sector, a compensation package in this range for somebody with the skill level that we're looking for is not out of line at all. And where do you get the money? A good general manager is going to be able to save money as well. So I mean, so you're going to have like a little bit come back just in the actions of the over the year, but we're afraid that if you don't advertise at the correct salary, you're going to eliminate so many potential people, because ideally the person we're going to want is a person who has a job, and they're most likely going to have this salary range already, and we're going to be taking them from that job. We're not going to have somebody that's going to be the best qualified candidate that is not working and will take anything.
Thank you, Lori. Any additional comments on salary? AJ?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had any time to actually look over the handout today, but I did notice one thing. So I personally think the salary range is fine. However, I don't think it's commensurate of 5 years of experience in a position like this. I think $150,000 to $200,000, we should be asking for 10. Personally, I think 5 is a bit low to have. It's basically 5 years of management experience, which is just kind of scratching the surface, and you're going to be managing managers in this position who may have then significantly more management experience than that person if they only have 5 years. We're going to go with 5 years. I'd probably be more supportive of something like 125 to 175. I think, yeah, and yeah, even if it's going to be some like closer to 5 years, having it closer to the bottom of a range with, milestones to create escalation and stuff to prove that they can handle the job. But I think, yeah, that's kind of my take. So I'm somewhat supportive of the salary range, depending upon what we're actually number of years experience required.
Any additional comments, questions?
I have a comment.
Yes, Joanne?
So just as Sonia noted that it would be sensible to discuss the salary in advance of trying to do something electronically to get approval, I think it would be wise to discuss reinstatement of the long-range planning responsibilities, because there seems to be a similar set of disagreements around that. I don't have a vote in this, but the way that the bullet points were written regarding the long-range planning committee, it's assigning secretarial duties to prepare agendas and documentation for the yearly strategic planning process with the strategic planning team, and to guide the strategic planning team through yearly implementation reviews, assisting the team in yearly updates of the strategic plan. One of the things that's been included in the several orientations for the board of directors that I've heard repeatedly is SVCA's attorney, Richard Davis, underscoring that the difference between the board and the general manager is that the board is strategic and the general manager is oriented towards implementation and operations. To give the general manager a strategic responsibility seems to invert that model and to give up an important responsibility for the leadership of the association that's vested in the board of directors. Either the general manager is your agent and implements your strategies, or they're not, or they're leading you to develop those strategies and taking this describes both a secretarial and then a leadership role under long-range planning. So if you guys are recommending, Sonia and AJ, you have said you want this, you would suggest that this paragraph be reinstated. There was discussion about the removal of this in the search committee, so I know that other people don't feel that way. So that issue should be resolved before we go to the next iteration.
Sonia?
Yeah, it's technically no different than us assigning you the fact that you need to schedule the board orientation and ensure that all the documentation and the training is implemented. Can't expect a new board, a new president, a new executive committee to even know that they're supposed to do those things. And a general manager, an experienced general manager, has planning experience and understands the importance of strategic and long-range planning. They're comfortable with there will already be a plan in place that would have already been approved by the previous board. That person's role is to ensure the continuity of these plans. So you're just bringing that in, ensuring that these things are scheduled. You're saying it's a secretarial role. We just talked about delegating responsibilities. If it's a matter of, I don't want to put paperwork together, don't. Tell one of your staff to do it. But it still should be the leader of this association, the general manager, the paid staff, to ensure that we have continuity in our governance, because it isn't always there. We have personally witnessed this actually repeatedly when there is a majority board turnover, which happens every few years, it feels like. And that's why we have this loss, and we have to start all over again. We don't want to do that. We want to continue these planning processes so that there is stability in this community, and it doesn't matter who is on the board.
The Nominations and Elections Committee, as an example, has a heavy responsibility for planning out the election activities, and they've developed a manual describing all of the steps to take in that process, thus ensuring continuity.
Thank you, Joanne. Any additional questions, comments? All right, we currently have a motion that's standing still on the table for approval of this job description. So let's proceed with that. And then our second motion I'm going to suggest we take is the motion on the salary. So at least we can get that decided tonight and then follow through with our emails. Go ahead,
So I'm
Sonia.
sorry, but the general manager who doesn't have previous general manager experience just proved exactly why she shouldn't be weighing in on this. Because this is all amounts to, you don't want to do the work, and you don't want to, and so you think.
Sonia,
another
you're out of
board director
order.
shouldn't
We're
do
not
the work.
attacking people in this meeting.
You know what?
Need to stop.
I feel like when you're sitting here and you're going to take this, you're not dealing
Sonia?
with the strategic. You guys have failed.
Sonia,
to-
we're
I think it's very important. You should actually hear what the Long Range Planning Committee says, because they feel like
Point
this
of order.
board and the GM
Yes.
doesn't support
Sonia,
it.
Sonia,
point of
please.
order.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're just clearing the motions off the table. That's what we're doing right now. Okay, so the motion on the table, which is already stands, was moved that the SVCA Board of Directors approve the proposed general manager job description. That was motioned by me, seconded by Tommy, brought up for discussion, so now we'll move to vote. All in favor?
We're not voting on the job description. We determined that we were going to discuss that, and we were only pulling out the portion of it. The GM put forward to pull out the long-range planning. When
Sonia.
nobody on this board did that.
Sonia,
Sonia,
point of order again.
I read the motion. That was the motion.
So what we discussed, though, is that we're not voting on the
You still
job
vote on that
description.
and vote to put it
So we're
off.
voting on the job
Not
description.
approve it, right? We could not approve it, vote to not approve it, which I think is a general consensus, and then move on to the salary part. And then we'll still proceed with with the motion or the move on, we're gonna send your email comments. Everyone's gonna do that to the secretary, as long as we get the salary squared away, right? That's what we talked about. So that's the motion on the table. All in favor of the GM job description as written? All opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, now we'll move on to the second motion. What's that?
I need to find out who's
Yeah.
voting, who's doing what here.
Go ahead.
So you voted to not accept it. What about you, Timmy?
Everyone.
Not, and just,
Okay.
I think it's unanimous.
It was unanimous, even Rick.
other than Lori abstaining.
Oh, Lori abstained?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now we'll move on to the other motion on the table was we needed to discuss tonight was a salary range. So the motion on the table right now is a salary range, although I do like AJ's inclusion. So the motion on the table would be the salary range to stay at 150 to 200 with 10 years management experience. Without that, it would be 125 to 175 with 5 years management experience.
One.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think one of them, maybe we should have one of them, here, I don't know if it's okay to comment. But I think raising it to 10 years experience, you're going to eliminate quite a bit of people who might have 8 or 9 years. I think we should leave that up to Prothman. They know what they're doing. And if they have an exceptional candidate with 6 or 7 years, we don't want them to not put them through because we said 10 years. Putting it at 5 does not mean we have to accept a candidate with 5. It just means that it's telling candidates that only have 5 that we are willing to accept their application. I think raising it is a huge mistake.
Okay, thank you. Sonia?
So Ashley, to that point, I think Ashley saying 10 years at the rate of pay that's listed, it's fine. Prothman, these people will still apply. Prothman deals with them, like if they're close and they feel like that they will meet the criteria, they'll still bring them in. They'll just offer, they'll suggest that we bring them in at the lower end of that spectrum as opposed to the full 200,000. So I think, because it's ultimately going to be up to us. They'll bring it. It may not have the full experience because they may have more job experience in a different area or something. I think we're fine saying 10 years experience and then just speaking with Prothman that we need something that's equivalent experience, right? It may be in multiple fields. That's all. Yeah.
Okay, Timmy?
Maybe if we just add the word minimum 5 years, kind of that we're looking for more. Is that maybe a compromise? Instead of changing it to 10, add in the word minimum.
No, it just says 5 years. It doesn't say minimum. It says 5 years of professional experience.
Can I comment?
It is and it isn't.
We're not
You're
looking
saying.
for someone with exactly 5 years experience.
Well, I know.
Okay, okay.
Agree that.
It's kind of
It's a
assuming that you're looking for more, but you'll look at someone with 5. It's a suggestion.
Rick?
Yeah, I think this is a good discussion. What do you think about the idea of stating 5 to 10 years of management experience? That would express the willingness to consider someone with 5 years. It would also, I think, imply to the lower end of the range, and the 10 years maybe to the higher end of the range, and people in between. I think that might address everyone's concerns. I'll just throw that out there. So instead of saying a minimum of 5 or a minimum of 10, say 5 to 10, and it kind of addresses the salary issue and the experience issue.
Go ahead, AJ.
Well, I guess I'll just state I disagree because I don't think someone with 5 years experience should be making $150,000 a year. Just personally. So like, I just think about my role and what I do at my job, and Like and what I would do if I stepped into this general manager role and stuff like that, and I have 7 years experience in my position, like, and, you know, I just don't see it. I think, you know, yeah.
What if we change it?
Someone, like, if by putting 5 to 10 years, if we're gonna do that, then I think the salary range should grow, and it should grow on the lower end, personally.
What about something like
So-
125 to 200, depending on experience? And then it's up to us, basically, depending if they're
And
5 years,
the,
7 years.
and we're talking, we're merging statements from two different documents.
That's correct.
All together. In the job description, which is what we're talking about, it doesn't have anything regarding years.
That's right.
So we're going, are we going to base? But we're voting on this, not that. That's for next year.
But it goes back to if we don't resolve this one piece, we're not going to be able, we're going to have to meet on Tuesday. So we probably,
It depends on if we want a general manager this year or not.
I just don't, I'm trying to get out a meeting on
Stu?
Self-inflicted tight timeline, excuse is getting old.
Stu?
Yeah, just a general comment. You know, in part, I agree with AJ and a lot of what he's saying about the salary range versus his experience and so on and so forth. There's also ways to just word things where it's coming down, like AJ said, it's just semantics. You just need to word it where it expresses that we're open to looking at a certain range and we're open to looking at a certain salary. And you know, personally, when I do job descriptions, they never have an exact salary range in them, and they never have an exact number of years in them. Use words like desired, preferred. I mean, it's really. I would think Prothman would know how to word this appropriately to where we could get the biggest pool of candidates possible.
So what does anyone think about the 125 to 200? Go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
Yeah, I survived a big company, 35 years with general managers like all over the place. But people that worked under them, you had like zero respect unless you had at least 10 years. You got to be done something before you got to that position. I'm almost like, 7 to 10 years preferred just to get it up there. You know, we're talking 5 years. That's pretty young to be managed and dealing with all us folks. I mean, we need some experience. We really do. It's a big job. We've been blessed with Joanne, really have. She works her tail off for us. Takes a lot. We need somebody that's got lots of experience, not afraid of 10 years preferred or 7 to 10 preferred. Money's is low for the full market, but 150 to 200, you got to start somewhere. I think that's okay.
Okay, so this is a job description. So in this job description, which we know we're gonna correct, we want to change some things in there, but the salary, do we want to change the salary then from 125 to 200 to allow us the authority? If it is somebody with 5 years, we offer less. If it's somebody with 7 or 8, we offer more, or is that a bad idea? Comments on that? Or where do you suggest we end this? We don't want to see 150 to
kinda
2. What do we want?
I like it at this job, at this rate of pay, and I think just something like what Stu said and also Ray, where we just word it in a way that we're saying 10 years experience preferred and let Rothman word that sentence. I mean, that's my preference. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think using language, 10 years experience preferred, like he said, that allows flexibility. I do have concerns about making the salary range too huge. If I sit here and think about it as if I was a potential applicant, it's like a huge unknown going into this whole big process that takes them a significant amount of their time, could potentially result in them traveling across the country. For you know, they don't get to know that end of the things until like the very like end once they've actually been selected. And so like if they're sitting here like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna get like 125 versus 200, that's a huge difference. I think a 10-year preferred at the current range we have is a good, you know, it does provide a little flexibility if there is someone with 7, 8 years, you know, that has maybe another 5 or so years, maybe not in HOA or city management, but management of something else in addition to relevant experience.
Okay, so the consensus is, I'm pretty sure we all agree with this, that we would prefer the 10 years. I like how that was stated, 10 years experience preferred, and then we have no problem with the current salary range. It would just stay as is, and then we would change our job description via email. We'll have all that over by Monday at noon to the secretary. So that's not changed. We're still going
Both
to do
of
that.
these documents? So we're talking, they're gonna have this to me.
Can't hear you.
They're gonna have the profile to me by noon on Monday. And they're gonna have any edits to the job description to me by noon on Monday.
Were there any
Correct.
edits needed to the job description?
There are a few.
Okay, that's what I was under the understanding.
Can't be heard.
Oh. I was under the understanding there was some change that wanted to be done.
He has mine already in red line. It's there. All he has to do is, I've already submitted mine in red line.
Right.
I think it was in the, I know that Rick sent it out to everybody. So,
I didn't respond to that because I thought that then constitutes a board meeting.
I agree
without-
with you. That's what I was like. I didn't want to come here and
So just so that I understand how I will be reacting to the edits that I receive. If I put all of the edits that I receive into the document, we've had conversation tonight that says some people disagree with other people's suggestions. For example, Linda sent in very specific set of word changes. And when she explained those, other directors said that they did not like those changes. So if I put everybody's changes into this document, no one will be able to approve it because there will be many things that they disagree with. So instead of just amending the document, do you want me to list out all the changes and then you can vote like, or say which you're in favor of and which you're not in favor of? Like doing something by committee is super difficult.
Mhm.
I think that's a good idea, Joanne, if you list them all out and we can go through one by one, as opposed to if they're in the document, it might get really confusing because we could have 3 different versions of one paragraph, and that's just going to be a mess.
Well, I was gonna bring it up, but you guys were running with it. I don't see any way that this works out. I agree with Joanne. It won't. You guys have to call a board meeting.
gonna be a
Like, you
board meeting.
can't.
It's gonna be. a board meeting.
There's just no way, like, I mean, all the just changes, like, without having a board meeting via email and having actual discussion via email, I just don't see how it's actually possible to just do a vote.
It sounds like we're just gonna have to go through this and maybe do the key responsibility paragraphs. But just go through the description of duties. Is everybody okay with the first bullet point? Is everyone okay with the second bullet point? Isolate what we're okay with, and then what do we, if there's anything that the majority objects to, then we look at it. If the majority is not objecting to a bullet point, at this time, it's a job description. It's, I mean, they're going to do their job. If you look at, they're not going to do all of these every day. It's a guideline. They're going to, a responsible general manager doesn't need this job description to do their job. It's just a job description. So if we go through, if we're going to nitpick it line by line, then we need to go through it line by line. Otherwise, we're just going to get edits after edits after edits. And then come October, we might have a job description.
Thank you. AJ and Stu.
Go ahead,
Or-
AJ.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Talk more than you.
Go ahead, Stu.
I was just gonna say there was actually really only two main points that were discussed that needed to be changed. One was with the long range planning committee, and frankly, I don't remember what the other one was.
Equity, the diversity,
The
equity.
diversity
That's
thing.
one sentence.
You know, I don't see why we need to go through and comment on the whole thing. There's just those 2 points there, and you know, if Sonia has some preferred language you like in there, she could submit that to the group, and the group could look at it and say, "Hey, okay, this works," or maybe suggest a couple changes.
I just,
Jaime?
After-
go ahead,
after
AJ.
well, I mean, a job description is a legal document. It is attached and as an exhibit in the contract with the general manager. So it's not just a thing to scoff at.
No, but it really has, in the state of Washington, a hire at will, fire at will state, it could cause financial implications, but it's not really a legal document.
That's actually not true. We can fire them for cause if they don't follow that job description. If they fail to, well, but that's what he's saying. It's part of it's literally an addendum to their contract.
Okay, taking Stu's suggestion there, maybe what we do is move on the two big items that we're looking at, since we're good with the salary now and we've got the preferred years of experience. So let's look at the strategic planning. Let's have a brief discussion on that if we can, and if we can't, we can carry on to later, but hopefully we can take a brief discussion on strategic planning. How do we feel about the general manager actually performing? I have issues with it myself, I'll be honest. The general manager is way too busy to be involved in any one committee to a certain extent. I mean, there's certain things I could see that we need from her or from staff, but not to be named as being involved with a committee. That's just my opinion, and then we'll go around the table with questions, comments. Anybody?
Well, that actually addresses
ahead.
what the concern is, because I think that because the GM doesn't understand what this means, the long-term planning and strategic planning, and how much it should be entwined with our budgeting, all of the board's planning, our 10-year capital plan, all of that it's tied in with the work that Joel does. You know, all of our capital projects, it's literally part of the fabric that will help us be successful and for everything to work together. It's not that it's working with this committee. This is ensuring that the board understands strategic planning and is involved in the capital planning process that's already been implemented, that a previous board has begun, but you also then need to review it. You need to, you know, make determinations to keep things moving forward for the association. And I think that's what my concern is that I'm already seeing that, you know, it's not working this year. That's why you hear me being frustrated. I have a long-range planning committee that I will tell you is saying, why are we even here? Because the board has made it clear they're not listening to us. Everybody's losing focus and we're not staying on track. And again, it's really important. These pieces matter. Strategic and long-range planning occur in every business. And this is a multi-million-dollar corporation. And we need to behave like a multi-million-dollar corporation.
Thank you, Sonia. Jaime, and then.
Okay, I think the one sentence where it says provides support for all committees of the association kind of does bring in long-range planning. And then the other part in green that says collaborates with the board of directors on implementing and administering the SVCA comprehensive community plan, strategic plan, and identified strategic priorities. I do believe that covers it without having to be the direct liaison with LRPC.
Thank you, Jaime. Lori, and then. Oh, okay, go ahead, AJ.
Well, I'll just say, I'll save you the trouble of the email thing. I won't vote for a job description that doesn't have the general manager as the direct person as the liaison to long range planning, so.
Thank you, AJ. Linda?
I guess I could be concerned about that, but last year, when you were the chair of long-range planning, it never met one time. Anytime you have something like that occur, you have a break in the long-range planning. One of the things, the community plan, I haven't seen anything from you guys. I know that there was a strategic planning committee and Joanne facilitated that, spent all her time doing it, spent time here on that Saturday with you. She saw that everybody got a facilities uh, tour that the long range planning wanted everybody to have. And I think that Rick probably made the best suggestion where you need to come back with things to us. You know, we haven't seen much from the 3 and 5 year plans. You know, you can sit and shake your head all you want, but I'm saying when long range planning doesn't meet for a year, there's a break in the continuity. Yes or no? You can't just say, no, it doesn't matter.
You
It does
actually
matter.
show my point.
Point of order,
Fine.
point of order. Hey, point of order. Point of order.
But that's actually
Let's-
my point.
Hang on. Go.
Let's not point fingers and make accusations and stuff here, okay? I mean, it's just,
Okay,
not- it's not
Lori,
necessary.
What I was going to say is that what happened last year, last week, we can't change that now. What we have to look is what's the best position, what's the best role for the general manager to take in committees going forward. As AJ said, he will not vote for a job description that says that the general manager is not the liaison. I will not vote for a job description where it says the general manager is the liaison.
So
So at this point in time, if discussion is not going to change anyone's minds, we might as well just take a vote because the majority is going to rule. So why don't we just take a vote and put it to bed?
well, that's an attitude, and that's the problem, isn't it?
Sonia,
I hope the
please.
membership is actually watching
Sonia,
this.
please.
Yes,
Point of order.
do hope the membership's watching this, Sonia, because we need to be a productive board. And if everybody has studied this and looked at it, we've had it in our hands for weeks. There was a reason we took it out. There was a reason we spoke with Prothman. And it's putting too much of a direct order
A
on the
qualified,
general manager, keeping the general manager, the future general manager, and the current general manager from actually running the operations of this community the way that it needs to be run. If there's a better person in the staff or a proper person in the staff that can fulfill those roles, what is the problem with that?
there isn't, because first of all, you guys designated a staff member, and why don't you take a look? We don't get the videos posted. They have the wrong dates even on the, on our agendas, and we get zero support, zero support. That's important. The second thing is who is being the liaison between this planning committee and the board? It really matters. And when you guys keep saying, see, this shows me this is why there is no continuity, because you don't even understand that a strategic plan actually exists. That 10-year capital plan, in 2021, there was a strategic plan that was put into place. All of the capital projects that have occurred were part of that strategic plan. That budgeting and planning process is implemented and woven into our budget, and it's in our AGM documents. It's been in the election booklet. It talks about the planning process, and it explains how these things are woven together. It literally says linking budgeting with strategy. It literally says.
How is this related to
yeah, let's,
She
the job
said
description?
that there's no
Okay,
strategic
no,
plan.
she said, let's vote,
yeah,
and you took exception to that. So
I'll
could
make
we,
a motion.
thank you.
Make a motion that we vote on the salary range of 150 to 200,000 on the job of keeping that in the job description.
For that. That was so, all right.
One at a time. Anyone second?
Second.
All in favor?
I go with 10 years.
With 10 years.
What do we-
preferred.
The preferred,
Yeah.
with that preferred
Preferred
statement
statement.
of the 10 years experience preferred.
So can I, the motion is to
for the salary range to be 150 to 200 with a preferred experience of 10 years
Yes.
In the. well,
in
are
the
we-
job description.
So we're going to add the 10 years to the job description because it's not currently in here. There's no years in the job description.
You're right. Yeah, so that
We're
is,
talking about profile. Guys are doing.
That'll go in the profile.
yeah,
We're doing two.
Not, they're both together. They go together. The profile has a direct link in
So-
it to the job description. They go
okay,
hand in
so
hand.
let's,
Let's
they-
let's
they-
make a
modify it
motion
again.
on the
Together.
profile first then.
okay, so how about if we do this? I move that we vote for the salary range to be 150,000 to 200,000 with a note in the profile requesting prefer 10 years experience preferred. So we're doing, it's for both. It links them. Are we good with that?
We can do that because the profile.
Can I get a
has-
second?
The second? Okay,
Thank
Linda second. That's
'cause
timing,
The
you know, Linda.
profile and the job description both. give the-
They work
the
together.
salary.
So it's voted on both.
All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, moving on to, go ahead. Did someone abstain?
Linda abstained.
Linda did, okay. Are you good?
Stu?
Are we going back to the job
Yeah.
description now?
Now we're going to the strategic, yeah, in the GM, yes.
The job description. Okay.
So now we should do, so that was the one point in the job description. The other 2 points in the job description that seemed to be really up to discussion were the
Long range.
long
I
range
continue with my,
planning and the general manager being the designated employee and not allowing.
can I continue with my comment, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's in the profile.
So in the job description, it literally says collaborates with the board of directors, implementing the administrating the SVC comprehensive community plan, strategic plan, and defined strategic priorities. The only thing that's missing out of that is long range planning. I don't see why it would hurt to put it in there.
So this is the part that I'm concerned with, which has to do with the continuity aspect, where when you remove where the sentence where it says guides the strategic planning team through the yearly implementation reviews and assisting the team in yearly updates of the strategic plan. The other is, and however it's designated, there's issues with providing long-range planning with data, et cetera. I mean, that's one thing, yeah, it can be incorporated in what you just said, but my concern is that there has to be some stronger tie to ensuring that there's a continuity, because let's say Linda, actually, what Linda was pointing out is it's a valid point. It's not the first time that long-range planning didn't meet. Ever since it's been part of the bylaws, it goes like it won't meet for a year or two or something. And then we don't have a committee with any experience or any knowledge. And the same thing goes for the board that doesn't necessarily have any experience or knowledge. That's my concern. I'm just trying to ensure that somebody with, continues that and ensures that the board understands, these planning processes, right?
And I agree that's a valid concern, Sonia, but the language in here actually is directing the general manager to do that. And that's what collaborate means. So, I mean, other than putting in the exact words, you have to oversee the long range planning community or something to that effect. This language does exactly what you want it to do, with the exception that it doesn't say long range planning committee in there, which is easy enough to add, in my opinion.
Okay, so I think if we changed like that one sentence where it changed the wording where it said acts as primary liaison with, whatever it said, the board, and then it went community residents, which we can't say that anyway because it's not appropriate. It needs to say members if you were going to do that. But we could put it back with the planning team. We could just say it like that. If that's primary liaison with the planning team. The planning team is the board, long-range planning, if it exists, and the key staff.
So are we on page 2? Are we still, Sonia, are you talking about page 2, that
I'm
sentence
trying to
collaborates with board?
compromise to hit what Stu's
Well,
saying.
That's the sentence he was talking.
Finding.
Page 2, the last, second last sentence of governance
Yeah,
collaborates with board of directors.
I was reading, what is it? The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th, 10th bullet point under governance.
Yeah, so I'm saying, I think if we, where it says community residents, if we would even just change it, if the long-range planning is the problem, if we just change it to the planning team, right?
I don't know where you're
Well-
talking about two different things.
Yeah.
Are we on the
We're on
job
page
description?
2, under
We're on
governance, the second last point.
Collaborates with the board of directors on implementing and administering.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the one you're on, right? Stu?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sonia's,
Am I looking at the right document?
yeah,
And
Sonia's looking
I
at
think
something
I'm reading-
different than
I'm
you.
trying to find it because I don't have it, but it's a different line. Yeah, it's a different line that, where it talks about the primary liaison with, dang it, hold on just a sec.
And I'm not sure if you guys did this or Prothman
so
did this,
he
but
found-
one of the things that I typically do when I have bullet points is I rank them. Most important ones are on the top. And then they get less and less important as they go. But I mean, that's typically what I do when I do job descriptions, but everybody has their own way of doing things.
I think Sonia is referring to the 4th bullet point under governance.
Under governance and.
Governance, the fourth.
Yeah, it's a second from the bottom. It says
The main
staff liaison with the board, and then
residents.
they crossed out long-range planning.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, community members would be better than residents on that.
Right, but what I'm saying is to address the whole, like Linda's concerned that what if long-range planning doesn't meet, and Stu, like where if we just said the planning team, right? That means the planning team consists of, like if there's a primary. Because then if there's, the planning team is by definition, the long-range planning committee, the board and key staff.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
if,
That's good.
even if we don't have a long-range planning committee, like what we did last year is the board still did the strategic planning, right?
So,
And the
so
key
where do you want
staff.
to add that, Sonia? I'm a little
So,
confused where you want to add that.
In
Like,
that part, the number 4 bullet point under governance, act as the main staff liaison with the board, rather than saying long-range planning, which is what you guys.
because right now it says community
We're
residents
saying the planning team.
instead of community residents.
No, and planning team and the community members.
Community members.
So,
The board planning team and community members, is that how you want to change that?
That would work good.
so as Rick has previously stated, like Long Range Planning Committee reports to the board, right? They're a standing committee. And that's important to remember. So that it's not the GM's job to make sure the Long Range Planning Committee meets, right? That is not her job. To make sure that it continues on.
No.
Okay, hang on. Keith
not
is,
about the
Keith is
committee.
talking. Can you let him finish?
Well, that's my point. To me, it's the Long Range Planning Committee, like you just said, they haven't met in a couple of years. They didn't present anything to me when I took over, and yet it was supposed to. They're supposed to have meetings. None of this has happened, and all of a sudden it's become like this huge, important, critical deal that you're trying to make out of it, and you're trying to make like a GM responsible for it, and I disagree with that. The GM does not have the time. They're so busy and so consumed with day-to-day operations, they really don't have the time to sit here and, I don't want to say babysit, but that's what it's like to babysit a committee.
Because you don't understand the planning process, or you wouldn't be saying that. The planning team is not just about the long-range planning committee. It's about the board and key staff.
Not
And the
just about
strategic-
long-range planning committee, that's correct.
Right. So y'all are getting hung up on long range planning committee and we did not meet for 2 years. That's not true either.
Year or two, I said, I think, so it's quite a while.
Because there was a solid strategic plan in place.
Go ahead, Taimee.
I mean, take.
Okay, so,
We have this figured out.
so if we do the changes that Sonia just said, planning team and community members, we are not forcing or asking the GM to oversee long-range planning, just, like specifically, because it would be covered in this point and also the point that, Stu brought up. So we don't need to mention long-range planning because it is, by definition of all the other things covered. So are we good with those two? Is everybody good with those?
So we're going to change bullet point 4 to acts as the main staff liaison.
With board, planning team, and community
Is
members.
the board not part of the planning team?
It is, but you know what? It's
They're two different.
it's not you know what? It's not a really big deal. And if that's going to help us get through this, I don't think that it ties the hands of the GM at all. It's just a point, and I think that we could, personally, I would just let that one go.
We're going to change it to community members.
Yeah. I do believe members is better.
You don't want
She does
to.
deal with.
Although
too.
the general manager, it has to be residents.
Mhm.
If I have a member that rents their property, you know, so it really, I don't object to residents. You can put members, but I'm saying it's everybody that lives in here.
Good point.
Yeah, but
No.
it's on.
Members don't live here.
Well, I know, that's why,
How about just Sudden Valley community? Period.
Okay.
there you go. Works, there you go. Thank you.
All right.
That.
Wow.
Teamwork. Teamwork.
We might actually not have a meeting on Tuesday.
We still have that whole, we still have the profile.
Dream.
Got the salaries.
Well, can I just say something about the profile? Is that if we look at it, I'm hoping that some of it is, just pour this for a second. 'cause
Yeah, I
buried
don't
mine.
think it's gonna be, I don't think the
Um,
profile's gonna be as.
I mean,
good.
some of it is, talks about the region. I mean, can we all agree right now that we're okay with that section and we can be happy with the region? We're just talking about Bellingham. So we don't need to have any corrections unless it's grammar or something on the region.
Yeah,
Okay. Organization and community,
Agreeing to something
unless
I
it's,
read, so
Go ahead, AJ.
not agreeing to something I haven't had time to read myself, so.
okay, in theory, are you okay with saying we like Bellingham? In theory, can we, be okay with organization and community and kind of work on the last 2 points or 3 and like whatever?
I don't think it's gonna, I think if we do it like we were planning where everybody comments, because I don't think it's gonna be that controversial, this piece of it. I don't think it'll be, it'll be things like, instead of saying Bellingham, you say the greater Bellingham area or something like that. It'll be little, I mean, I haven't read it all the way either, but I'm not seeing anything that's jumping out that it's gonna be,
Minor things like,
yeah,
yeah.
I think it'll be little edits. Just personally from looking at it really briefly, but I mean, again, I haven't read it either, but I don't see any, just quickly perusing it, nothing jumped out.
And
It
we've
was-
already done we've already done the change to the education and experience
10 years is management.
preferred.
Yeah.
So, and I just, one more thing, and then I want, can we go back and add a line that it does address diversity, equity, and inclusion? The original line in the general manager's job description actually said the general manager shall promote and support diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace through the implementation of collaborative work programs. I don't know that it necessarily needs to have the whole rest of the sentence, but I'm
I
wondering,
wonder what section it is in.
it's in the key responsibilities.
Responsibilities.
and it was removed. There was that whole, um, so again, I'm not hung up on all of the other stuff that was,
That's something you could email her over, write that change.
that's on the job
Yeah, we don't-
description.
I see it. I have it here.
We don't want to do the whole thing. We want to be collaborative.
Well, I just want to make sure we come to a solution.
I promise.
What is a collaborative work program?
Don't want.
Well, the program part could come out as my thought, like, we could just do the words, the general manager shall promote and support diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And
What exactly is that going to, I think you're going to have to expand on that if you're going to do it, because what you,
we want to make sure that we are not, we've had problems with, race issues and also, issues with inclusivity within our workplace, and we want to ensure that we have a general manager that isn't like that, right?
wouldn't that be just something that would come out in the interview process and just not hire somebody else like that?
So we make a land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement at the opening of our board meeting, and it's basically setting a tone for a general manager that, what kind of community we are and what we expect of them inside that workplace. I think removing the part about the programs, you don't have to have the full sentence, just that sentence where the,
You certainly wouldn't want a general manager that doesn't support
right, that's why I feel
equal
like it's
opportunity in
important
the
that it's,
place, but I think I mean, having that in the job description, it's just not something that usually would be in a job description.
I gotta say that I have to agree with Sonia. There are some entities, businesses that believe they don't want to talk about diversity. And there's sometimes that option to include that in your hiring policies and that sort of thing. And there's other times that people don't. Do I think it's something that should probably be in ours? Yes. I don't know about everybody else, but that's how I feel. But I'm saying there are companies that choose not to include that.
Yeah, I think we could add something if we wanted to. I would point out under administration is probably where it would fall under. But it says thorough understanding of all association governing documents as well as applicable federal, state, and local laws, ordinance, rules, and regulations. Those pretty much cover everything, all that. I just point that out. So it is under there, like under the first bullet point. Okay, any other conversations about this so we can move on?
Yeah, no, I think you point out a good point there, Keith.
Go ahead, Rick.
Under that bullet point, just including the verbiage of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it is it's a sensitive subject, and it's socially appropriate, I think, at this time to include that verbiage, so that we have some documentation, and it does support our other statements that we have posted. And I think that is a good spot to put it. Just tag it on to the end of that.
Tag it on there and we'd have it.
Yeah.
Maybe between the regulations and ensures management team, because you're going to refer about all the matters back that you just listed. So rules and regulations, and then put in something about diversity, however we want.
Yeah, you just don't need all of that, like
Yeah, and then
Sonia was
just-
saying too, just that one
And then
sentence that
ensures
you have.
management teams
Yeah.
also
maybe if we can just approve it and then let you guys wordsmith it, maybe, so we don't
Yeah.
have to do it here.
So we'd want to just put something about inclusion and diversity in bullet point 1 under administration between regulations and ensures management.
Okay.
Right
Sounds
here,
good.
right here.
That's easy to do.
Then we don't have to figure out.
It's good. Get what's in there.
Okay, do you have the
Now able to
changes?
just make a motion on the whole entire sudden job description with the changes. as
Job
included?
description or the profile?
That was on the job description. Diversity and inclusion.
Job
was
description
right
with
there.
approved changes.
I would move that
So
we approve the job descriptions with the discussed changes having to do with the planning team and the diversity, equity, and inclusion as discussed.
in the
Can we get a second?
senior
I'll second that one.
Second by Timey, Rick, and then Timey second. All in favor of the motion of correcting the document? AJ? Go ahead, Linda.
No, Corey's gonna have to do.
All right, you can read it.
Okay.
We're
Somebody gonna
changing-
write this down or do you want me to?
I'm just gonna read the changes.
Okay. So I make a motion that the Sudden Valley Board of Directors approves the general manager job description with as written with the following changes. Under governance, bullet point 4, we add the planning team. So it would read acts as the main staff liaison with the board, comma, planning team and the Sudden Valley community. And the second change would be under administration, bullet point 1, that we add a statement or sentence regarding diversity and inclusiveness after the word regulations, but before the phrase ensures management team is also knowledgeable.
Second.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
That's the longest
Okay.
motion I've ever heard.
All in favor? 4, 5. AJ? No, okay, it's everybody but AJ. You abstain or oppose? Oppose. Okay. Awesome. At least we spent a lot of time on that. It's good. Okay, moving on finally to item 8B, approval request, library lease. Okay, everyone's had time to review this. We're going to move right to the motion. We move that the SVCA Board of Directors approve the proposed commercial lease agreement for occupancy of the Adult Center by Whatcom County Library System and authorize the general manager to execute the agreement on their behalf.
Second.
Comments? Sonia?
Well, I have a couple of comments just based on the fact that there's some errors in the way this has been represented. Like for one thing, the Whatcom County Library System, first of all, they already had this document before it was even introduced to the board at closed session. And they've already voted to sign this document before we have even had it in front of us. I'm a little concerned with how did that even occur? Additionally, back in April, the board approved almost $8,000 to put heaters into the library. But now somehow this is now being negotiated as a 5-year lease term, and you're saying that we're going to have these tenant improvements that they're going to put up $40,000 towards, but we have to cover the rest, which we already know the Welcome Center costs $50,000 and it's smaller than the library. So we will be paying we'll be paying out of our pocket another $10,000 to $20,000 for a tenant improvement that we're not even required to make. And the board had already approved heaters. Then you say, well, we paused that. Well, who paused that? Because it didn't come back to the board. You didn't ask us if you should pause that while you're negotiating this. We approved those heaters. And that didn't happen. and it's been paused while somebody decided we should divert money and do an unrequired tenant improvement. And then the way the document is shows it makes it appear as if we're somehow earning an incredible amount of money off of this because of this tenant improvement, when in fact, we're not going to be making any money off of this lease for the first couple of years, because we're going to have to cover the additional tenant improvement that we weren't required to make to begin with. So for that one reason, I'm opposed to it. And for the second reason, this is not a fair market value lease. The library is funded through our tax dollars. We've been told multiple times that the foot traffic at the Sun Valley Library is higher than that at Birch Bay. Yet the Whatcom County Library System budgeted $1 million for Birch Bay this year. Meanwhile, we're supposed to be happy that we're getting $500 a month for a building that cost us more in maintenance. I'm not okay with this.
Any additional questions or comments?
Can I
Linda?
address? I'd like to ask Joel, because he might be able to address this. We had a water heater and a furnace not heaters, a furnace that I believe we approved just a couple months ago. I don't know if you have that. I don't have my stuff in front of me, but it was like was it maybe 30 some? I can't remember. There was one specifically for the improvements to the library.
What month do you think it was?
7,000.
It was in the questions and answers. I responded to Sonia's question. The question that Sonia asked was, please provide the actual cost estimate for a new library HVAC system. Additionally, the board approved new heaters for the adult center several months ago. Were the new heaters installed? I responded, we are waiting for the quotes on an upgraded heating and cooling system. Contractors have given estimates of about $50,000. The project that the board approved on April 25th to replace the furnaces and hot water heater at the adult center has been paused while we wait for the board to consider the proposed lease. That is what was responded to in the question. The actual amount that was designated, I think, is cited in the, that was in the memo that I reviewed with you guys.
Well, in February 22nd, adult center furnace and water heater replacement, 13,108. That was approved.
Yes, it's almost 8,000 of that
Yeah.
was for the heater.
Yeah. Furnace and water heater replacement.
So it's a portion of that, about $9,000 was for the furnaces.
And so through April, we spent about 6,554 of that. Yeah, exactly half of it was spent at the end of April.
Joanne,
So was it for the furnace at all, or is it
No.
just
No.
for the water heater?
Just the water heater.
the library's not asking us to put that system in. They're going to put it in at their cost. Is that correct?
No, the library is making a one-time payment of $40,000 contributing towards the capital improvement.
Okay, I thought they were, all right, thank you.
Yeah, so they're making $40,000 plus they're gonna $500 a year and it goes up $100 a year versus
Correct.
we're getting like
Less than
$1,
$300.
$1 a month or something.
Right, because we're going to end up paying like at least $15,000 for the additional, if you put an HVAC system in there, it's going to cost us at least $55,000. So they're only contributing $40,000. That's $15,000. That means they're basically, we're a wash for anything that we make off of them for a few years. And we're not required to do that type of tenant improvement. If they want it, they should cover the full cost of it, especially if it's a 5-year lease.
I think when we first discussed this and we talked about the furnaces, I can't remember if it was Rick and Stu, but I know Ray had part of that where they talked about upgrading to the, oh, what are they called? Help me now.
Yeah.
Heat pump.
Heat pumps,
heat
and
pump.
that's kind of what we're talking about now.
Now, yeah.
So it's like, this was discussed at that time, so it's not like this is just something brand new that came out of the air somewhere.
But it wasn't a real discussion. It was just board members saying, hey, maybe we should consider that. But during that time too, a year ago, the board actually, when we did the CTK lease, in closed session, the board directed the GM to always ensure, because we knew that this lease was coming up, that we needed to bring these leases into fair market value. And we needed to start making them to where if we needed to end them or we determined to end them, that we wouldn't be penalized for it. So the goal was to shorten this lease and to bring it up to fair market value. Instead, it's been extended. And like I said, this increase in rent, we're going to lose that increase just based on the fact, even if you calculate in the $7,000 for the heater, we're still talking about, we're out of our pocket probably another $10,000. So we aren't really going to see any increase. We're actually going to be making less money from them just because we've negotiated to pay the difference on the heater, on the HVAC.
I think we all know that in the years that we've had the lease with the library, they've asked for considerably under market value. I think the first year was what, $284 a month, something like that, or 2, 4. The numbers 2, 4, and 8 go together, and the first one was 2. I don't remember it was 4, 8, or 8, 4. But I'm saying for years, that's all they had. They never got an increase. And finally, when it was negotiated the time before this, they had just moderate to where we're only at what, 320, I think, something like that a month.
Mhm.
And you're talking, at least here, you're having considerable increases every year. And yeah, it's not market value, but I think their problem is that they would like to stay here, but that the library board does not pay rent
Anywhere,
yeah.
anywhere.
Well, they bought a building for $1 million in Birch Bay, and they cover all the maintenance and cost associated with it. And they budgeted $1 million for those expenses this year. Those are our tax dollars. Our tax dollars are going into that library system, and it's not returning to us in any significant way. They're spending quite a bit of money outside of this community.
Oh, AJ?
Yeah, I agree with Sonia. And if you look at your tax statement, your assessment, the rural library system, at least for me, takes about $150 a year from me. Extrapolate this over our community, and our community is contributing roughly $500,000 to the rural library system, just our community. And that doesn't even include the undeveloped lots who are probably paying some level of fee as well into that, though probably not nearly as significant. So I think the fact that the library system supposedly doesn't pay rent and any of their other facilities, I don't think is relevant. I think it's them using their position as a library and basically, getting free, instead of using our taxpayer dollars to fund these things, they're trying to get free rent. It's essentially the equivalent of like all these new stadiums being funded by taxpayer dollars. Like, it's a similar concept, although on a much smaller level. And I just think they should pay fair market rent. They should pay for the full cost of the tenant improvement, not just $40,000. Otherwise, yeah, we're not actually getting anything out of this.
Thank you, AJ. I just want to read something real quick to you all. So the current value of the lease right now, year one, at the current value they pay, we'd collect $3,650. With the new lease, it'll be $6,000. Year two would have been $3,722 from the library, and under the current terms, the new terms would be $7,200. So it goes up exponentially over the years. So at the end of this thing, the total of 5 years, the current library pays 18,994 lease. The new total would be 82,000. So it is significantly different over those 5 years. There's also the termination clause, which you pointed out, painting them, that has gone away, right? So we've terminated that. There's no renewal terms included in the agreement, but holdover rent is 150% of the current monthly rent. So if they decided they want to stay, it automatically jumps up 150% at the end of 5 years. So at this time, either party, under the new terms, either party may terminate with or without cause within 1 year of written notice. With 1 year written notice, upon default of leasee, 30 days written notice and opportunity to cure. So it is significantly different. It's an improvement, but I do understand, you know, I don't know what we could get like really for that building. I have no idea, but it's a big improvement over what the current lease is, and it's, we want the library here. They are a big add to the community. They're important. This is one of their busiest libraries. I do know that, and so they are important to the community. So does anyone else have something to offer?
Well, I do want to point out that that's not the appropriate way to document what tenant improvement value is. That's not appropriate, those numbers. That doesn't, we're not taking in that money.
No. So to address that, so what they are offering, so we were going to replace the furnaces, and if you remember, they were only like 83% efficient rating, which is not great, right? They're not high quality. The library also wanted air. So they want to upgrade to air, to add air in there. So they're willing to dump in $40,000 because they know it's roughly going to be 50. And we kind of already agreed to put in 8 to 10, right, with what we were doing. So that's where that 50 came from, to cover that. And then if they do leave in 5 years, we'll have that building with air that they paid for, basically.
That will have depreciated over
Yeah,
that
yes, of
term.
course.
So it's not at the value. And again, this
Well,
isn't
it
cash
is, but-
coming into us. We're actually expending cash. This is my point. We're expending money we're not obligated to expend. So even though these increases are happening, we're actually coming in at a lesser amount than if we had kept the lease at the same dollar amount. If they exit out, if they exit out in, let's say, 2 to 3 years, I'm trying to explain to you that this is if we put out like $20,000, $15,000 for this, you know, we're not bringing in this. This is not money coming to us, even though they say they're going to give us 40,000. That's not cash in our pocket. That's a tenant improvement. All we get for it is that we get to count it as a capital asset. Then there are all the accounting issues that go along with that. And Joel, you're familiar with this lease. I mean, do you agree that this says that we're going to be making $80-something thousand off of this lease? Do you think this is the way to actually show a tenant improvement?
Well, I mean,
I suggested in my table that that was the value, not cash brought into the association. I'm very clear on what a tenant improvement is and is not. So this table in the memo is expressing value. Even if we had to pay an additional $10,000 over the 40,000, 8 to 9 of that was already designated for the replacement of the furnaces. So it is a small incremental improvement, which will be recouped in year 1.
So the value would be after depreciation over the 5-year term of the lease. That's just what I'm saying. These aren't appropriate numbers.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, so our goal, I don't think was to, even though we would like to collect market rate rent, I think the library offers a lot of services to our members and residents, and we have to be aware of that. The improvements, the tenant improvements, leasehold improvements, will become part of our property. There's a good chance, I understand, with a heat pump, that there could be a significant tax deduction. For residential, it's in the neighborhood of 30%. That could offset a lot of that out-of-pocket cost. We won't get it right away, But when we file our taxes, I think there's a good chance we're going to recoup.
And well, actually, we're a 501c4, so we're non-taxable entity, tax exempt.
Hmm. I thought we paid taxes. Okay.
No, I mean beyond like property taxes, but not federal income taxes.
Good.
Gotcha.
Okay, okay, part of this, we were given this information quite some time ago, and you asked a question, and you could have asked further questions from Joanne. So some of these questions should have been asked at the time when you got your original package. And I think that I would like to call for a vote on this, because I think we've,
So we can,
so I think it's time to vote.
Well, I'd just like to say, although, yeah, the board agreed to new procedures, you can't just stop discussion at a board meeting because so it doesn't work like that.
we're discussing. Any additional comments, questions? Okay, we'll move on to the vote. So the motion on the table, whether we move the SVCA Board of Directors approve the proposed commercial lease agreement for occupancy of the adult center by the Whatcom Library System and authorize the general manager to execute the agreement on their behalf. It was seconded by Linda. All in favor? All opposed? AJ and Sonia, it passes by majority. Okay, moving on to item 8C. It's the Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer District tabletop exercise. Linda?
So the association has been invited to a tabletop exercise that they're doing at the water district, and they only can have 2 of us there. And so there was a suggestion that Mike Brock be one of the people, because he's our maintenance manager, to be able to attend the meeting on our behalf. And then a board member. It's just pointing out, Mike's going to have to be, I can send this information. Joanne may already have it for when the meeting is. It says the exercise date is July 10th, starting at 8 a.m. and concluding at noon, and take place at 1220 Lakeway Drive. So I just need us to decide. I had said that I would like to attend, but apparently we have to take a vote to see if that's okay.
AJ has a question or a comment?
I have a comment. So this is a training exercise with multiple, organizations, Whatcom County. Here, let me see here.
Federal government.
Yeah, so I don't think it's appropriate for the board director to attend this. I think Mike, Joanne should attend this. We just approved job description that says the general manager is our main liaison with governmental agencies, Whatcom County being one named. I did ask both Rich and Holly, are any other elected officials attending this training? They told me no. They say in their email that they are looking more for staff. This is a training exercise that staff, so I get the interest of board members wanting to attend, but I would like to say to the board that this is a taxpayer funded exercise and our interest shouldn't be clouding we're using resources of the taxpayers in this training just by attending it. I just don't think board members should go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. However, I would say that they asked that a board member be there, which was odd.
Well, they didn't.
Yes, they did. I talked to Holly.
The one that Holly initially.
I'm facilitating a tabletop exercise.
AJ was,
Whatcom Water and Sewer District with a water contamination scenario on the morning of July.
AJ.
The scenario will take place affecting an area of Sudden Valley HOA. I'd like to invite someone involved with the HOA to attend if they're able. We have 20+ people planning to attend, including from state and county health departments, fire department, dispatch, sheriff's office, FBI, cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency, along with Lake Wacom Water and Sewer District personnel. Like, these are all like,
I know. Did you get Chris Munson's, email? Munson?
When it came to the board,
Oh,
it's, you
The
know,
full
it
board.
says you might consider sending whoever engages with Lake Wacom Water and Sewer District regularly and or a board member, but I think they want someone who interfaces, who would actually participate in
Yeah.
the training exercise.
I sent it right away to Mike. I agree 100%.
Mike would be the one who does a lot of probably the in the field stuff if it happened in our neighborhood, and Joanne would be supporting Mike administratively with any of that stuff. I think they should be the ones that attend.
All righty, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
that would work
Linda?
just fine. It's just as long as we have somebody attending that can come back and
Yeah.
report to the board and tell us about it, because
Yeah.
I can't believe we're gonna have all these people at this meeting and it's not of some significance.
I'm not saying it's not significant. I'm just saying we need to know our role, and that's not our role being at that tabletop exercise.
Yeah, again, it was weird. So they did ask that someone from the board asked, so I talked to them and then I found out that they were limited on the thing. So I backed out. I was like, well, I understand that. And then I sent it to Mike Brock and Joanne. So I agree 100% Mike Brock first and foremost. So I have no issue with that. Any additional questions or comments?
Are we gonna send Joanne and
Well, we'll
Mike?
put that, yeah, does the board agree that Joanne and Mike Brock would be the two appointed members we'd like to send to the,
Do we need two? Is Mike Brock not sufficient to bring back the information?
we could. Yes. They don't have to have two, and they are very limited. So he did send me a thing. He said he really apologized, but they're really limited on space. They had more people coming than they thought. So that's not a bad thing necessarily.
As long as Mike can come back and report to us, I have no issue with that.
I mean, unless Joanne has a burning desire to go.
How's that, Joanne?
It's up to the board to decide.
Okay, yeah, so it doesn't matter. So do we want to appoint two members to go or one? Mike Brock for sure, correct? All in favor of Mike Brock? Okay, that's unanimous.
And Joanne, if she can't have time.
And Joanne,
discretion.
if she has time and at her discretion, then to attend. All in favor? That's Rick? Rick, how did you vote?
I'll abstain.
Okay, Rick abstains.
But a question? Oh, just voting. Just really- just really like Joanne.
Well, I think it was worded really well. I think the way Keith said it.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
We're done.
Okay, well, if everyone's all done with everything, adjournment at 9:48 PM.
I'll second that.
Thank you, guys. I know it was longer than we thought, but we really got through a lot, I think. So I thank you for the extra time tonight.